Hello, brothers. Welcome back. Today, a tier list. A beast tier list. Top tier, by the way. So, I just wanted to make a fast tier list about all the beasts. And we are rating them, very simple, by good items or fights. These are the things you want to fight, or you mainly for the fight or for the items, or not worth the risks for the items. And especially in beasts, for beast fights in Battle Brothers, all of them are probably worth taking for the experience, but some of them you should only take at a certain stage or with a certain specialized company, right? With specialized bros. So, yeah. If you want to take every fight for the XP or you want specific loot, of course, every fight is worth it. But generally speaking, a lot of these fights are not really worth the money or the loot that you get from them. Okay, let's get right into it. Alps. So, Alps are very rare to find on the map. They only occur at the night. Fairly, relatively common in contracts. So you can fight them by having the contract. This is the Battle Brothers wiki. By having the contract Haunting Nightmares or something like that. I'm sorry, I have forgotten the name. And I would say the Alps are not really worth taking the fight. Because if you take the contract, you have to wait until night. And they do direct HP damage, which cannot be resisted. Okay, can be resisted by Indom, but like you can't dodge it, you just take damage. And there's actually a decent chance that you lose low hit points or low resolve brothers in these fights. Of course, there are certain tricks you can do with nets and stuff like this, but like there's always a decent chance that you lose somebody. You can rally away the sleep, of course, but yeah, like they do pure damage to you. They're not that hard to kill. And most of the time, like the stuff that you get from them is also something I never really use, right? It's not bad, but like the loot is not worth it. The contract is, because of the timing, a lot of the time, in my opinion, not worth it. And it is, for an early game lineup, a fairly dangerous fight where things can easily go wrong. So I would say generally not worth the risk, and the items are also not really worth getting from this fight. All right, next one, direwolves. Direwolves are really is a really good fight. Early game you can beat them with shield wards, and the thing is, you really want the loot from them. The direwolf's pelt, you can make them into a direwolf pelt mantle, which is the minus resolve thing, pretty good. But you also need this for your fur padding, which is one of the, I would say, the best late game attachment for your Battleforge armor. So this fight is really good. They only come early. They also come from the contracts. Hunt down what terrorizes the village, right? So the frenzied one can easily kill one of your brothers, so be really careful with them. They are pretty dangerous, and even with overwhelm and the bleeding stacks, they can be quite dangerous, even for later bros that are nimble, right? So versus tanks or forge bros, like general dire wolves are one of the weakest beasts, right? And really worth taking. All right, next one, Hexen. Hexen, they always come with other beasts and they charm one of your bros, and that bro fights now against you. Not worth it, not worth it. The loot that you get from them is something that you don't really use or need for your armor attachments. It's like happy powder. I think you can make all of that stuff. Like you can make a necklace, but like who cares, right? It's not really worth. Definitely one of the toughest fights. You can easily lose bros no matter the stage of the game because you fight your own bros. So you fight the monsters that you created. Also, most of the time they have Unholds and wolves and spiders and whatnot. Like, terrible fight. I always dodge them because they're not worth it. Archers are pretty good versus Hexen. So if you have good archers, you can take the Hexen fight. Also one of the legendary locations, the Witch Hut, is a Hexen fight where you have 4 of these bastards that you have to take down. So yeah, and you get a funny decker that is just, also not really worth it. Next one, hyenas. Okay, from the hyenas you get the hyena 4, which is nice for the hyena attachment. That gives you a plus 15 initiative. So for dodge characters, pretty nice. Also gives you, I think, 15 armor. So really good early on. Again, frenzied hyenas have overwhelm and they inflict bleeding. So scary opponents. Again, shield walls work with them. Kind of like the same tier as dire wolves. One of the weakest beasts, but you fight. They always come in like groups. So you fight a lot of them. You can easily lose nimble bros to them, or early game bros that don't have nimble or battle forged. But armor attachment is worth it, and if you prepare yourself for the fight and they don't come in too great numbers, it's not a too hard fight. They also, like, beasts are generally weak to the moral checks, especially the weaker ones. They tend to flee easily, the wolves and the hyenas. All right, next one, Ifrits. And Ifrits, they come in 3 sizes and they kind of march together and then they dismarch and whatnot. I don't know. The stuff that you get from them, like the loot, is 100% not worth it. You find them down in the south and you can get them by the moving sand contracts. That's when you can get this contract. There's a trick. You can, when you get the contract to destroy the Ifrits, you can lock the Ifrits into a big nomad camp or into a conscript army, and the conscripts basically kill the nomads for you, kill the Ifrits for you. So, or the nomad camps can kill the Ifrits for you. So there are tricks that you can do with them. But just the fight alone is not worth it. They have shooting and melee attacks that have high chance of wounding you because they have crippling strikes. Easily, like when you fight Ifrits, you always have a wounded brother, basically. And the loot that you get is most of the time not worth it. And the contract also not really worth it. So I would avoid, can be made, but it's not really worth the time or the risk in my opinion. And definitely not worth the loot. Next one, Lindwurms. I would say Lindwurms are the strongest ones. Like the strongest single opponents outside of legendary stuff. Lindwurms are incredibly scary. They as you can see, 1100 hit points. They consist out of a tail and a head. So 1 Lindwurm is always 2. They have incredible perks. They hit you for, like, they do so much damage when they hit. They do an incredible amount of damage, as you can see. Where's the attack? Gorge does, 40% armor pen, 80 to 140 damage. And the tail slam does a lot of damage as well. What's the tail slam? 60 to 120, like in an AoE. Like the Lindwurms are the strongest one. And if you hit them, you get the ascetic blood that dissolves 10% of your armor per turn. So, it's nasty, right? Your Battleforge bros get just melted by this shit. And they, like, against Lindwurms, you easily lose a brother. And guaranteed you get injuries. Unless you have a very specific team with tanks and goblin pole arms, or pole arms in general. Yeah, I always dodge them. You get them also from contracts later in the game. I would say not worth the risk. To be fair, the Lindwurm stuff is really good. It's not really good. It's okay, right? The Lindwurm loot, because from the Lindwurm scales you can make the Lindwurm armor attachment, which gives you plus 60 armor for 3 fatigue. It's pretty nice, and you can also make bone plates out of the Lindwurm bones. Also pretty nice. But generally not worth it. All right. Next one, Nachzehrers. Some call them nachos. One of the weakest beasts, maybe the weakest beast. But therefore they come in big numbers. Like a dozen are really common. Even early game, easily you fight 20 of them. If they, like, I lost with late game companies to size 3. the tier 3 Nachzehrers, because they can eat your bros, and if you fight 8 or 10 of them, they just eat your whole company and you can't kill them and you lost. Generally, not too hard, the fight. The loot is not really worth it, like the Jagged Fence and the Nachzehrer Horn, you can make the Nachzehrer trophy out of that. So it's a nice addition, but they're very easy and they come from contracts. I would say just for the XP is a decent find. Get countered by spear walls. Like, you can do them early game with the wolves and the hyenas. Not too hard of a fight and just worth for the XP. And I mean, the loot is a fairly cheap increase in resolve, right? If you get the Nachzehrer trophy. Be aware of these big boys though. In big numbers, they beat even late game companies. Okay, next one, Shrats. Shrats are probably the second strongest single entities in the game outside of legendary stuff. Incredibly tanky. They have shield. They are shielded, so you have to break the shields with like break the shield. So axes are really good for this job. And yeah, they have incredible hit points, very high hit points with also crippling strikes. Again, they are similar to Lindwurms. They have AoE attacks that injure you. And the specialty about them is as soon as you do damage to them, they spawn saplings, which yeah, do a shit ton of damage as well. Again, they don't come in big numbers, but like even one of them is a serious enemy that if you fight Shrats, you basically have an injured bro with an injury, and it's not too hard to lose bros to this. Also, they live in the forest. You can get them from the contract in forest cities, and yeah, usually fighting them in forests. How you beat them is you kind of surround them, break the shields, and kill them. So when they are surrounded, they can't spawn the saplings. The problem is they just do so much damage without a specialized company with like tanks and special tactics and whatnot. Really hard to fight, especially in the forest when you don't have Pathfinder and an early game company. And the problem is the loot is not really worth it. So you can make the shield, the Schrat shield, which is not really worth making. It's like, yeah. I tend to dodge Shrats because they're not really worth the loot and the risk. You can easily lose brothers and you catch injuries, more or less guaranteed. Right, next one, Serpents. The good old Serpents. I think everybody makes the mistake of fighting Serpents too early on, and then you get the dick and your brothers die. They have Backstabber and they pull your bros in with the drag attack. That means unless you have Battleforged or Underdog tanks, they're gonna shred you apart. They come in big numbers, so like, and also they have a shit ton of damage for the fact that they have high numbers. So really strong single entities that disrupt your formation with drag. And that's just something, like early game, I completely avoid fighting them unless I have a lot of Battleforged with Underdog in my team, and then at that point I start fighting them. The loot that you get from them is not really worth it. Like the Serpent skin is for additional pouches and whatnot, and you can make an armor attachment that reduces like incoming fire damage. Is like, in my opinion, not worth the risk. You can easily lose bros to the drag attack that stagger you. I don't fight them. Early and late game, I just fight them. I just slaughter them for the XP if they walk by. All right, the next one, the Unholds. You find the Bog Unhold and the normal Unhold. They are, if I'm not mistaken, exactly the same. And then you have the Frost Unholds, which are in the north, and the Armored and Unhold and the Armored Frost Unholds, which you get in big barbarian games, right? So these one that you find, you want to fight them. They are hard, really hard opponents. They don't come in big numbers, usually just a couple of them. If you see 10 of them, run. Like, unless you have a late game company, a really strong one. They charge you with crippling strikes and they do a shit ton of damage, bash you around. They regenerate after after they did their thing. They have AoE attacks, they can throw you around. They are hard to control without Indom. and they easily kill or injure a bro. But they also give you bone platings and Unhold furs. So the Unhold hide gives you additional pouches for your archers, bigger pouches for your archer arrows and your crossbow bolts. Also, you can craft orc armor. All three of them pretty good. You also need them to unlock the Kraken quest. Giant skull and bones, you can make bone plating out of them. Probably the single best armor attachment in the game because it works on Nimble Forge and Battle Forge armors. And the white Unholds, the northern Unholds, they have the thick white fur, which you use to make fur padding, which is the best Battle Forge attachment. So again, you find them in the wilderness, you can get them through contracts. I just like doing them because they have, you can make the best armor attachments, all of them. And on top of that, other weapon things that you really want to build. All right, next up, spiders. Are these the weakest ones? I don't know. They have Backstabber, so yeah. Fast Adaptation, Pathfinder, like, they don't do much damage, like one spider doesn't, but they have poison, so, and they always come in like a dozen, and they have eggs who spawn additional spiders, so you also can get ambushed by them in the forest. I would say not worth the risk or the items in general. They are fairly easy beast, but you do not care about any of the loots that they drop. You can make yourself poison or reinforced snatch, which is, in my opinion, not worth doing. The contracts, they come with contracts, so fulfilling the contracts is whatever. They don't give much XP, and early game they can kill your bros, especially in big numbers. They can kill a company because like they come in ridiculous numbers. And the spider eggs, they spawn multiple of them, so yeah, can spawn up to 3 spiders per egg, so you can easily fight even early on 30 of those, and you might lose bros to that. Again, if you have a good company, these ones are like a cakewalk. You just kill them for XP, but generally, it's not the fight that I'm seeking. But you can make them early. They're not too hard. I just say they're not worth, mostly because of the items are trash. The next one are the 2 legendary ones. It's the Rock and the Kraken. Both of them give you legendary gear. The Rock gives you the Rock armor, which is a legendary Battleforge armor. After you have beaten the man in the icy cave, you find the hunting grounds. In the hunting grounds, you destroy the thing, which is the Rock. The Rock is basically like a giant Unhold that charges you and regenerates after every turn. Also, the spirit walk. If you are in the ice, your things get reduced. Your action points get reduced. They stagger you. Does a lot of damage, but again, it's a single entity with 2,200 hit points. So if you have like a full company of pros, you just equip a lot of 2 range weapons, and you just kill the thing. You get injured most of the time in this fight, but it's most of the time worth it. It's kind of a late game fight, and you get a famed Forge armor, probably the best Forge armor in the game. Because this one regenerates, every piece regenerates plus 10 hit points per turn. Really good armor. And yeah, every campaign I take this fight, I wouldn't recommend bringing Archer to this fight. I have a feeling this guy likes to target archers, and archers, they tend to die in this fight. So I wouldn't recommend bringing archers. Bring all the big melee boys with the big 2-handers and just smash the thing dead. Yeah, similar like Unholds, just a single entity. All right, the Kraken. You want to fight the Kraken because you get a broken blade, and with the broken blade you make the laser sword, which is the best weapon in the game. You also get the Kraken plate and the severe tentacle, where you can build a Kraken armor attachment or Kraken shield. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, again, single entity, the Kraken. There are multiple guide videos on how to fight the Kraken. It's a little bit complicated. It's a tough fight. You can easily lose bros if stuff goes wrong, but worth it. Like you get legendary gears from that fight, so definitely worth fighting. Yeah, just be very careful. generally you want to wait for a good spawn where like it's in the swamp, right? And you want to spawn on the island that is not a swamp, and you want to have the path to the kraken also not swamp. So you need a decent spawn, and I highly recommend pole arms for action points weapons, because these ones, they ensnare you, and losing the ensnare costs you 4 action points. And yeah, again, reloading is not a bad idea if you fight the kraken, and really preparing for this fight is also something I recommend. Alright guys, there you have it, my tier list of the beast fights. Generally, I avoid these opponents and I try to take these fights because of the loot that I get from that, the armor attachment that I can make, the gear that I get. And again, these ones I dodge because the risk is not worth the squeeze. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. I stream daily on Twitch and YouTube. Be my guest. See you. Bye bye.